Hey, my name's Josh Wymore, and I want to help you be successful in college. And the way I want to help you be successful is to simplify down the things you need to focus on in your first semester. These are principles that I learned the hard way as the first person in my family to graduate from college. Stuff I picked up along the way that now I've been able to pass on to lots and lots of first year students. Hopefully, these things are helpful for you today. All the advice you've gotten about how to succeed in college, take morning classes, take afternoon classes, take this professor, don't take this professor. Really, the foundations for success, real success, are three things: organization, knowing what you need to do; motivation, being motivated and driven to do the things you need to do; and prioritization, knowing what's most important for you to do. If you're organized, you're not going to miss assignments and miss deadlines. If you're motivated, you're going to be gritty. You're going to overcome adversity. You're going to keep pressing on. And if you've got prioritization down, then you're going to focus on the right things that give you the biggest leverage, the greatest chance of success. So we're going to talk through each of these three principles today. Hopefully you walk away with some things that are really practical and useful for you as you start college. All right, so let's dive in. Organization. Okay, so why is organization important? Well, you can have the best motives and best intentions in the world, but if you don't have a system to keep yourself organized, you're not going to get it done. You're going to miss deadlines and miss assignments. I learned this firsthand because I didn't have a system when I started college. Or I did have a system, but it's not a very good one. I called my system the thumb drive. And no, it was not the thing you plug into your computer. It was literally taking my thumb and writing notes of things I needed to do on it. And that worked out okay sometimes, but there was a lot of long-term stuff I missed, or if my hands got sweaty, I was sunk. So hopefully you have a better system than this. Here are a few questions to know how organized you are. Answer true or false to these questions. True or false? In the last week, I haven't missed a single deadline or forgotten to do something I needed to do. True or false? I always know where I'm supposed to be at a given time. I don't rely on my mom or someone else to keep track of me. And number 3, I am never stressed trying to keep up with different things I need to do. True or false? If you answered false to any one of these questions, I want you to pay particularly close attention because I've got some help for you. And even if you said true to all of them, I still have some tips that are going to be really helpful for you. There's 2 big principles I want you to take away from organization. And they're these. Principle number 1, everything you need to do should live somewhere other than your brain. And principle 2, you should be able to easily find everything you need to do at the right time. So what does this mean? Well, again, your brain is really bad at remembering lots of different things at once. So you need a place outside of your brain to keep track of this stuff. Think calendar for all of your due dates for every assignment you have in every class. Sit down at the beginning of the year, write out when your big papers are due, when your big projects are due, so you're not surprised by these things sneaking up on you. You can take it an even step further by backing up from those due dates and saying, okay, if I'm going to have a midterm due here, then a couple weeks before I need to have a second draft ready, those sorts of things. Everything, though, needs to live someplace other than your brain. When you're walking across campus and someone says, hey, send me a text about when we can get together, instead of trying to keep that in your brain for the rest of the day, stop, write it down on your thumb if you have to, in your phone, on a notepad or a notebook that you have. Even leave yourself a reminder. It's what I do all the time. Set a reminder for 5 o'clock to text my friend about these things. Everything you need to do needs to live someplace other than your brain. And it needs to come back to you at the right time. So if you have a forever long to-do list, it's 1,000 items long, and some of these things are for today, some of these things are for next year, it's not a very good system, right? How do you focus on the things you need to focus on now so that you're not bogged down by the things you need to focus on later? One really practical way of doing this is set aside one time every week to sit down and make your plan for the week. Look at your calendar, look at the events coming up, look at the due dates coming up, and say, okay, on Monday, what do I need to do? On Tuesday, what do I need to do? So on and so forth. Make your priorities for the day. And then as you're going throughout the course of your day, something new pops up on your list that you didn't know, write it down and set a time that day to go back, look at the things you've added, and figure out where in the week that needs to happen, if it needs to happen at all. If you do this, you're not going to be juggling these things in your brain. You're not going to be stressed out trying to remember things. You're actually going to be more organized and able to deliver on the things that you want to deliver on. Okay, so I want you to pause right now and think about these 2 principles, that everything needs to live someplace other than your brain. It needs to come to you at the right time, and ask yourself, how can I use this in my life? What tools or resources really resonate most with who I am? You don't have to follow the exact things I listed, but I do want you to stick to those principles. So pause right here and ask, what could I do this week to help myself get more organized? Okay, so to wrap up, motivation is super important because it sets the ceiling for what you can accomplish. No matter how motivated you are, if you don't have a good system down, you will fail. Finding that system will help you be successful, not miss due dates, miss big obligations you've committed yourself to, help you follow through, which is motivating, energizing, and ultimately productive. Okay, now moving on. Number 2, motivation. Motivation is so huge. And you've laid a good foundation if you're starting off being organized. Now you're motivated because you feel like you're making progress, you're getting somewhere. But motivation is really deeper than that. It's deeper than just having a to-do list and feeling like you're checking boxes off. It's about knowing that you're accomplishing the things that are most important to you in life, right? Because the second you hit adversity, if your only purpose, your only motivation is to get good grades and one of your grades slips, well, gosh, all your purpose just went out the window. For you to really overcome adversity, you need to know, why am I doing this? Why is it worth the long hours and the hard work and maybe the blood, sweat, and tears to accomplish this? Your purpose answers that question. Your purpose also clarifies your decision making because two people can be in college for very different reasons and as a result make very different choices. For instance, if your purpose for coming to college is to get into a top law school, you're going to have a very different set of priorities than someone whose purpose is to be a #1 draft pick in the NBA. Those are both great purposes, but they're very different directions for you. Your purpose and motivation clarifies then, how do I make choices about what to eat, when and how to study, what classes to take, so on and so forth. Your motivation answers these questions. So how motivated are you? How clear is your purpose? Here's 3 true or false questions for you to assess. True or false? Setbacks don't discourage me. I don't give up easily. True or false? I have a clear and exciting purpose for my life. Lastly, true or false? I finish whatever I start. If you answer true to all these questions, great job. It seems like you've got some pretty good motivation, pretty clear purpose. But I still want you to pay attention because I've got some really helpful tips for you. And if you answered false, definitely lock in here on what we're going to talk about. So there's 2 big principles that I want you to think about in terms of motivation. 2 big things you can do to find greater motivation, greater purpose. Number 1, clarify your purpose. And number 2, define success. Number 1, clarify your purpose. What does it look like for you? Well, again, your purpose should go beyond just getting good grades and having fun. You need something deeper than that. Hopefully a direction for your life. For me, this was an interesting journey. I thought when I came to college, I'm probably going to be a high school math teacher and a football coach. I had a great time in high school, really loved sort of the mentorship and leadership aspects of being a coach. So that's what I wanted to do, be a high school football coach. So I set off on that path. But as I was doing that, I'm going to education classes, I'm sitting in the classroom, I'm even coaching some. I also got involved as a student leader. And as I looked at these 2 experiences side by side, I realized, wow, I really feel like I just come alive in these student leadership jobs. I love mentoring and coaching leaders and doing life with them. I wish there was some way I could do more of that. And someone told me, hey, Josh, actually, there's a whole field called student development, and that's really what you do, exactly what you're talking about. And that, for me, was a life trajectory changer. It took me off in a very different direction. And so as you're beginning this journey, you're going to ask those questions a lot, and you may pivot a lot of different times. That's okay. The point is to keep iterating, keep asking those questions, to keep getting closer and closer to that purpose. There's a video I'll link to below that walks you through a framework called Ikigai that helps you ask these questions. But as you start off in this journey, I want you to think about, what is my purpose? Why am I here? How can I clarify that so that I've got this deeper motivation to succeed? And secondly, I want you to define success. When you get to the end of the semester and look back and you're thinking about whether this was a good semester or not, how are you going to know? What does it look like? What does it feel like? What does it smell like and taste like? And is it getting all A's and maybe having no social life? Or is it having a great social life and, getting through with C's and D's? You need to think through what that looks like. And we'll talk more about goal setting later, but to create a really strong visual image for yourself of what success looks like, how you will measure it, how your parents and friends will measure success. And one helpful tip you can use to really visualize that, to stir motivation, it's called a vision board or a dream board. It's capturing images of what success looks like for you, of why you're in college, the career that you want or the life that you want, the people even who are sacrificing to help you get here. Those things, especially the visual representation of those things, can be a really powerful motivator for you. Those are 2 suggestions then. clarify your purpose and define success. I want you to pause really quick and ask yourself, what can I do that would really motivate me, would really clarify my purpose, would really help me define success and stay motivated every single day? Pause right here and ask yourself those questions. Okay, so to wrap up, motivation. Motivation is all about overcoming adversity, having that drive and that fire to accomplish those big and important things. If you've got this deep motivation, you'll be gritty. You'll be able to overcome setbacks. We'll talk more about grit in the next video. But motivation is fundamentally about finishing well, about persevering, not just about being able to throw a lot of energy at something for a brief period of time, but really about the long haul. Hopefully these tips help you become more motivated and stoke that motivation in yourself. Okay, last but certainly not least, prioritization. Prioritization is definitely the hardest. Most people do not have prioritization down. They jump from one thing to another all the time, and every decision is kind of a painful one because they don't know really what's their guiding priorities. If you can master the skills of prioritization, you're going to be so far ahead in life. Now, what is prioritization? Fundamentally, it's two things. It's determining order and determining energy. Order, what comes first, second, third, what's my sequence of events, and then energy or effort. How much energy should I give this thing, right? Folding your socks may be the next thing on your list, but you shouldn't spend 2 hours folding your socks. You should be able to do that in like 7 minutes. But your term paper that's coming up, you do not want to spend 7 minutes on that. It's going to take several hours to really do that well. Prioritization helps you know what comes next, what's the order, and how much energy should I give that thing. Now here's a few questions for you to determine how good you are at prioritization so far. True or false? I know every morning what my top priorities for the day are. True or false? I never waste time on things that aren't actually important. And true or false? I'm on track to achieving my biggest goals in life. Okay, if you answered false to any one of these questions, I want you to pay really close attention because I've got some principles and some practices that are going to be very helpful for you. The two principles for effective prioritization are, number 1, begin with the end in mind. And number 2, allocate energy accordingly. So number 1, begin with the end in mind. What does that mean? Well, essentially it means start with the end that you want to achieve. Start with the goal you want to achieve and work backwards from there. Okay, so if you want all A's in your classes this semester, what is that going to take from you? How many hours a week of study? If you want an A on this paper, when should you start doing your research for that paper to ensure that you've got the foundation laid to write a really good paper? When you start with the end in mind and you work backwards to your present day, you know what needs to happen when. It's not just about taking things that are thrown at you, but you become more planful, more proactive in determining what it is you're going to do. There's a really helpful principle on this from Stephen Covey's book, The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, and I'm linking to that video here. But it's about focusing on quadrant 2, what he calls, which is the intersection of the things that are important but not urgent. Things that aren't fires that you got to fight, but the things that are really important that if you do them can really set you up for success down the road. Really encourage you to watch this video to gain some really helpful perspective there. So begin with the end in mind. That's the first thing. Help you know what's most important now in light of the things that are ultimately most important, the ends you want to achieve. The second thing is allocating energy appropriately. Okay, so I know what's important, but how much energy do I give it? And I think back to a time when I was in college and I had 3 competing priorities on one night. I wanted to hang out with some friends I hadn't seen in a while. I wanted to get a jump start on some homework for the next week, and I wanted to watch a movie. And so I thought, you know what? I'm just going to do all 3 at once, right? Check all 3 boxes. That's a triple win. And so after a couple hours, we had kind of watched a movie, and I'd kind of done homework, and I'd kind of hung out with my friends, and I had felt awful. Like it'd been a waste of a night. I hadn't accomplished anything. I hadn't really enjoyed myself, and I hadn't caught up with this person. It was really not a good evening because I didn't allocate my energy accordingly. It would have been much, much better for me to call my friend and say, hey, I'd love to hang out tonight. I got some work I need to do for the next 30 minutes. Let me knock that out, and then can we catch up? And maybe instead of watching a movie, we can watch, a couple episodes of The Office or something, right? If I'm allocating my energy to things and really being focused in those things, then I'm actually going to get the returns that I want, rather than just kind of giving energy to some different things and not really seeing it pay out. So the principle for you is, again, if you've got a paper that's worth 5% of your grade, It's a very small blip on the radar. You probably shouldn't spend 20 hours working on that paper. You need to allocate less energy to that, because every hour you spend on that is an hour you're not spending on something that's really important. And really, it's not just about the hours, it's about the energy, because I can work on something for 20 hours but not really be giving it my full effort, my full energy, my full focus. If I'm giving it my full focus, though, for a good couple hours, I can make some really good headway on it. So determine for yourself, based on my priorities, how should I give my energy? How should I allocate that energy? So I want you to pause right here and ask yourself these questions, okay? What would it look like for me to begin with the end in mind? What are some practical steps I can take to do that? And how can I allocate my energy better to accomplish those things? Okay, so to wrap up, prioritization. Prioritization is all about order and energy. What comes next? What's the sequence of events? And how much energy should I give those things? Prioritization is understanding that getting 104 in one class and then failing all the rest is worse than getting B's and everything across the board, because you've allocated your energy appropriately to those things. If you can get prioritization figured out, you're going to be so far ahead of so many other people and be so well set up for success in life beyond college. Prioritization is so essential, and hopefully these principles help you do that. Okay, so we talked about a lot of things today: organization, motivation, and prioritization. Let's recap what we talked about right here. Number one, organization. All about ensuring that you have a system for keeping track of everything you need to do, so it's not living in your head and stressing you out. You'll be much less stressed, be much more successful if you have a good system of organization. Number two, motivation. Having a clear purpose that gives energy and focus to your work so you can overcome setbacks, so you can be energized by the hard work you're about to do. And lastly, prioritization. Knowing where and how to spend that energy that you've got so you can accomplish the most important things. These are the three foundations for success in college and in life beyond. Now, as we wrap up, I just have a few final charges for you. The things we talked about today, it may sound overwhelming to think about changing your life in all these ways. I want to encourage you, take some baby steps, okay? It's not like you've got to overhaul everything tomorrow. Because it's more about getting a little bit better every day. You are going to make mistakes. You're going to come up short. That's okay. That's life, right? We're all broken, fragile people. But if you continue to get a little bit better every day, that's going to add up, and that compound interest is going to make you incredible. So it's more important to start well and continue to make progress than it is to have this all down tomorrow. And this system, it may sound really complicated. It's actually not that complicated. It's just hard. It's hard to show up and do it every day well. But again, if you can do it well, you're going to see those dividends. Your life will actually get a lot easier rather than getting harder, even though it may be a little bit harder in the short term. And lastly, find a community of support around you to do this, okay? Don't try and tackle this all by yourself. Find peers who are living life the way you want to live life. Find mentors, professors, staff members, whoever that can invest in you, keep you encouraged, help you be successful. If you can lay these foundations now for success, not only will you see the impact on your college life, but you're going to be a more fulfilled and accomplished individual in college and in life beyond. So get after it, being organized, motivated, and prioritized today. You can do it. Excited to see you be successful on this journey.